I'm glad you're here on this Sunday. I'm going to get right into the message. I'm going to tell it like it is, as they say. Oh, I heard a hallelujah. Did you think I don't know what the hell is going on? And a lot of strange places. Where in the hell have you been? Hell, fire! Hell, fire! Hell, fire! All right. Okay, there's something else, too.
Hello, and welcome to the Satire Fire podcast, where we always support Michael B. Jordan, even when he's in bad movies. Put that boy on the screen more. I like looking at him. I'm your host, Samuel.
I'm Sydney. I'm eating a piece of bread. Sorry, I sound like I'm talking with my mouth full.
Thank you for joining us on this interlude episode. We just finished up our series on Fahrenheit 451, and in order to give both us an extra week to read and prepare for our next series, and you an extra week to read the book before we start, if you choose to do so, we're doing this little interlude episode where I have decided to make us watch and discuss the 2018 movie Fahrenheit 451. And
heavy on the make us.
we've got some thoughts, we've got some opinions about it, but before we get into those thoughts and opinions and plot summary and whatnot, Sydney, have you been reading or watching or doing anything in the past week that you wanted to tell people about?
Oh yeah. I went to the Cowboy Carter tour from none other than Beyonce Knowles, Queen Beyonce. I don't know why I said her government name. It felt disrespectful, actually. But yeah, I went to one of her shows at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I did have to go to New Jersey, and that was unfortunate, but I mean, I knew, like, it's Beyonce, and even if you're not a Beyonce fan, which I wouldn't say, I will go ahead and say I'm, like, a Beyonce fan for sure, but, like, she's not, like, one of my top 5 artists every year or anything. I've always appreciated and enjoyed her music, but I'll say, like, some things that, like, even if you don't even listen to her music, I think you know and can respect how talented she is. But truly, it was so incredible. I mean, she's just has really impressive vocals. She's still dancing. I mean, she's in her 40s, so it's not like she's like that old or anything, but like she's moving it, she's dancing. The choreography was cool, the production was insane. It was a stadium tour, as you just heard, and it was almost 3 hours long, so it was really similar in concept to the Eras Tour by Taylor Swift, in that she did music throughout her career. It wasn't the same in that it was like distinct eras, and it focused heavily on Cowboy Carter, but I really enjoyed it. And one thing I particularly enjoyed is, like, that album, I think, is one of those nice albums, and I don't feel super qualified to speak about this album, honestly, as a white girl, but it's one of those, like, albums that artists get to make later in their career, where it's really a work of art rather than just something that's, like, meant for popular play or meant to make hits. And it's a very beautiful album, and it talks, a lot of the lyrics and the musical elements, aspects of that album are really trying to tell the story of, one, country music, and two, just, like, American history, but, like, through the eyes of, like, the Black community. And if you don't know, country music comes from Black people. That's its roots. Which you might not know that, but it does. And I think that the production of it was really cool. Like, she, in, like, interludes between songs, she was, like, this massive screens, and they had, like, videos throughout history and showing just, like, Black experiences over time and what those looked like in art and culture in in work, in play, and just things like that. And it almost felt like I was like at a museum or something. Like it was really cool, and such like a beautiful thing to see. And also just I think that it's amazing. Like I said, I don't feel super qualified, or it doesn't matter what I say, but I'm sure that it's amazing to have someone like that, like creating this type of album and getting to play on a stadium stage, like for the Black community. I can't. I mean, there were so many people of color in general in the audience, and I can't speak for them, but I just think it's probably amazing. And Beyonce, like herself, was saying like, thank you for letting me be up here and doing this. And I just think that's really cool, and like I have so much respect for that, and I've just felt lucky to be there. So I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. I'm glad that you got to have that experience. I've heard that that was a really fun tour to go to.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to talk about, since we are discussing a Michael B. Jordan movie, I was going to talk about another Michael B. Jordan movie that I have seen recently, which is the movie Sinners. At this point, I mean, at the time that we're recording this, it's like fizzling out of theaters finally. It's been in theaters for quite a while, and it's like slowly starting to not be in a theatrical release anymore. And so by the time that this episode comes out, it might not be in theaters anymore, but I know that it's already on streaming in some places. So, if you live somewhere where you're able to go out and see this movie in theaters, absolutely do that. It's worth going out and seeing in theaters. If you can't see it in theaters, find some other way to watch it, because it is very, very good. It stars Michael B. Jordan playing a set of twins. So he's playing two different people in the movie. And it is talking about soul music in the Mississippi Delta in the early 20th century, where these two brothers, both of them played by Michael B. Jordan, are opening a juke joint in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and are inviting all of the Black people in the community to come out to the opening night, experience the music that they're putting on for everyone. The big thing of the movie, though, is that relatively quickly after the opening night happens or starts, vampires start showing up and are trying to get into the juke joint and trying to kill all of the people inside. And I don't want to get too much into like some of the really interesting things that it does, because it plays with the concept of vampires in a really interesting way that I haven't seen before, and I don't want to just give that away. I think that you should go and just see the movie. But it has a lot of interesting things to say about the appropriation of culture and the way in which both future generations reimagine culture from the past in order to make something different and new, and also how certain communities, namely white communities, enjoy taking cultural elements from various minority groups and co-opting it as their own. And so I think that it's an interesting tie-in with the Cowboy Carter tour of like the way that white people have claimed country music essentially, despite it not having the roots that most people would assume that it does. But it's a really good movie. It's very interesting. I highly recommend going out and giving it a watch. Super fun, 5-star movie.
And that has Haley Steinfeld in it, right?
It does. She's one of the like main love interests in the movie.
I saw an article about that movie where she was talking about this movie giving her the opportunity to explore her family's like racial identity and her own identity. And anyways,
yeah, I don't know too much about her in real life, but I know that in the movie she is playing a person who has a grandparent or a great grandparent who was black. And so by the like rules of the time, where it's like, if you have any amount of heritage that is not white, then you are considered a person of color. She is, by that definition, a person of color in the movie. And so I could see if that is her real lived experience, where she has mostly white but some heritage that's not white, it would be an interesting thing to think about and have to like reckon with the messaging that the movie is dealing with.
yeah.
But Sinners and Cowboy Carter is not the reason why we're here today. The reason that we are here today is to discuss the 2018, I hesitate to say film, movie, Fahrenheit 451. I don't know if this qualifies as a film, but it sure is a picture.
It's a moving picture.
This is a reimagining of the book Fahrenheit 451, where it's taking some of the core elements of Fahrenheit 451, but also some of the core elements of something like 1984, and reinterpreting it for like a quote-unquote modern day. So you still have book burning, you've still got censorship of information. Most of the characters are still, I mean, not even most, like there is overlap between the characters in the movie.
There are some characters, yeah, that are in the book that are also in the movie.
But it also takes a lot of liberties. The overall plot is similar, but it's a little bit different. So
in their defense, Ray Bradbury didn't give them a lot to work with.
No.
In terms of plot.
No, and I was going to talk about that, where it's like, is it better this way or not? But the story is still focused around Montag, who is played by Michael B. Jordan, who's a firefighter, who in this world still has the job and the responsibility of burning books. Some of the differences, though, like the main difference is that this movie introduces the concept of the Nine, which is kind of just like internet / social media / news reporting that's become like the ubiquitous source of information for everyone. And so like there are still things on the Nine that are information, but you see that the books that are being accepted by the government and by whoever is in charge are being heavily censored by the... Essentially, they're doing a interpretation of newspeak, where they're taking the books and they're replacing some of the words with emojis. And so you're supposed to read the book, but by replacing words with emojis, you're getting less critical thought. Like, it's very newspeak-ish.
And I think that, like, on this plot, this, I would say universal, but it's not universal, because there are also some people who, in the world, that don't agree with what is being done by the United States, at least. On the Nine, when there are these book burnings, like Montag does in both the book and the movie, he and his fellow firemen, they kind of televise them and make them like a reality TV show almost, and it's like the firemen are celebrities. Yeah. Which I think is a new interesting element. Like we get in the book that the firemen are respected, but in this world they're kind of like idolized. Yeah. And you're watching them do their job on the Nine.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the main differences is that not only, and this is where I feel like the movie gets confused, the firefighters still are tasked with the responsibility of burning physical media. In this, it's not just books. It's music, it's records, it's paintings, like just physical media as a whole. They not only are supposed to destroy that, they're also tasked with combating this revolutionary group called the Eels, who are taking books in their unedited state and uploading it to the Nine. Basically promoting and encouraging uncensored access to content. And so you see them doing these raids where they're not just raiding people's houses because there are books there, although there are always also books there. They're raiding like computer servers where people are uploading stuff. And it feels a little bit convoluted because of that to me.
Yeah. And I think it's just like all media from the past, like before this current regime.
Yeah, like it makes reference to, and it doesn't really talk about this. I don't think it ever even touches on this in Fahrenheit 451, but this movie is set after the Second Civil War, where the concept is basically everybody's opinions and ideas got so heated and the country became so divided. There was a Second Civil War, sorry. There was a Second Civil War, and as a result of that, information is now being censored so that not only are there no longer two differing opinions about any specific topic, whenever it's feasible, there are no opinions at all. There's only what the state is providing as a fact, and nobody questions it.
Yeah.
The second, or like in the plot line, the second big difference that comes up is that, one, Montag is not married in this. Montag does not have a wife, and Clarice is older. She's no longer a minor.
That's good.
Which is good for where the movie goes. Clarice is instead an informer for the firefighters, where she sources tips on where various outposts of the Eels or storage facilities for physical media are, so that the firefighters can then conduct a raid. And the reason that she's doing this is that if somebody gets busted for owning physical media or uploading physical media, their identity gets a hold put on it. Like, think of like a no-fly list, except it's for interacting with society at all. Like, you just become a marked person for a set amount of time. Instead of going to prison, you're still in society, you're still doing stuff, but you can't take a train, you can't open a bank account. Like, there's stuff like that you can't do. And Clarice got sentenced and now is doing this providing these tips in order to get her sentence reduced.
It's kind of like the Scarlet Letter, where you're just marked and shunned and can't really exist. She's also selling, like, at the same time, though, I guess to make money, selling like contraband. Like,
she's like, you find out that in order to get the tips that she's giving to the firefighters, she's trading contraband of like tape recorders and things like that. Like, she's finding old electronics and repairing them and then giving them to people or selling them to people in exchange for information that she can then give to the firefighters. The plot kind of goes from the same direction as the book at this point, where it's them doing some raids, them doing some burns, and Clarice ends up giving them a tip about a house in the woods that nobody is supposed to be at. And this house ends up being the representation of the old lady that commits suicide in the book, that is like incredibly impactful to Montag. So they show up to the house It's got a huge library of books, more than any of them have ever seen except for Captain Beatty, who is like, oh, I've only seen this once in my life. They do the whole rigmarole. They call a reporter for the 9 to come up and broadcast it. But this is one of the times that I like laughed out loud in the movie. Is the old lady, instead of just lighting a match and scaring everyone away the way that she does in the book, because there's kerosene everywhere and nobody wants to get burned, she rips open her cardigan to reveal that she has books taped to her like she's a suicide bomber or something. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And she then proceeds to burn herself alive, but before she burns herself alive, she says Omnis. Sorry. She says Omnis, and nobody really knows what that means, but they know it's got to mean something, and so in the news reports, they censor it to make it look like she said something else. And now the movie becomes figuring out what Omnis is, and then trying to stop whatever it is. Montag's character is still heavily affected by this, and he does steal a book from the library, but it is a different book than what he steals in the original. In the original, doesn't he steal a copy of the Bible?
Yeah.
He steals a copy of the Bible in the original. In this, he instead steals a copy of Dostoevsky's Notes from the Underground.
The Bible, Dostoevsky.
Which I found really interesting, because it goes into, like, he does some reading of this. Like, at this point, he is getting in touch with Clarice because he wants to understand why the eels are uploading stuff. He wants to understand the point behind these bannings and stuff, and also he thinks she's pretty, so...
Yeah, Clarice is kind of doing what Faber failed to do in the book.
Yeah, but essentially is playing the same role, where instead of going to Faber, he goes to Clarice in order to try and learn. And they are reading Dostoevsky back and forth and stuff, and you're still getting some of the 1984, because one of the parts of Notes from the Underground is talking about how 2 times 2 equals 4, but wouldn't 2 times 2 equal 5 be just as beautiful? Which is... It is a quote from Notes from the Underground, but is still leaning heavily into the 1984 vibes, because this has also got, like, surveillance state information kind of going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We end up finding out Omnis is a ploy by the eels to take all of the information from mankind. Everything that's ever been written or painted or made, or any music that's ever been produced, and re-encode that information into a DNA strand. And they have injected that strand of DNA into someone, and now the firefighters are trying to find that person because they believe that eels are trying to take that person across the border to Canada, where scientists are waiting to extract the DNA and spread it.
Sorry, I was like so excited to hear you explain that, because I was like, I don't know how you're gonna... You did pretty well.
It's very ridiculous.
It didn't make any sense. I paused the movie. I watched this with my partner Sarah, and she also hadn't seen it. And we paused, and she was like, "What?" And I was like, I don't think I'm gonna explain it much better, because I don't think it makes any sense.
They being the firefighters then start searching for Omnis. And here we get into some really weird intercutting plot-wise, where it's tough to understand what's happening when, because we're intercutting between Montag spending time reading with Clarice and becoming more intimate with her, as well as all of these raids looking for Omnis. And I think that it's just they didn't want to do all of the book reading scenes when they actually took place, and so they started intercutting them. But it makes for a really messy sequence. But Montag ends up getting in trouble because he, a couple of times, fails in the line of duty to perform his job. Where, like, he turns off the lights in a room where they're doing interrogation so that he can help Clarice escape from the firefighters. And they're doing a sweep of a house looking for eels, and he finds a man and his child hiding in a bathtub. And he just ignores that and walks away and pretends like they're not there. And that ends up that ends up going poorly because the kid drops like a shampoo bottle in the shower and makes a huge noise, which, like, I'd be so fucking pissed off if I was that dad. But because of that, Beatty ends up finding them and is like, hey, what the hell is up with this, Montag? You can't be, even if it's just a kid, you can't be letting him get away like this.
What if he had the Omnis?
He could have had the Omnis. Who's to say? Montag tries to put in his letter of resignation for the Force. Beatty doesn't want to accept it, and then proceeds to have another firefighter put a tail on Montag and try to follow him. And that firefighter sees Montag get picked up by a group of eels that includes Clarice. And they're going to take him to a safe house. And this is kind of playing the role in the book of the, like, transient intellectuals that were on the train track after Montag fled from town, but they're being introduced way earlier, and it's a totally different setting. But this group of refugees are doing the exact same thing, where they're referring to themselves by authors' names because each of them has been tasked with the memorization of a specific book. We end up finding out that there's this one kid who has memorized like 13,000, but like, I don't know what the number is, but an insane amount of books, and can recite any number of them, but he doesn't have the Omnis. His parents were the people that created the Omnis, and they injected it into a bird. And so the bird has the Omnis. And the plan has been made that they're going to... I didn't follow this. I'm going to be straight up. I did not follow this. So tell me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that they need to get a tracker for the birds so that the scientists in Canada know where it's at and where it's going. But did they ever say that their plan was just to release the bird? I felt like I didn't understand why they needed the tracker if they were just going to hand deliver the bird.
Yeah, because they said that Montag's job was going to be to get the kid and the bird safely to Canada. So I also didn't understand. I mean, I guess just so they know that they're still, like, coming and, like, safe and alive. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, they need a transponder to track them.
So Montag goes back to the fire station and steals a transponder, and in the process gets confronted by Beatty about books and is forced to read out loud while Beatty burns the book in his hands. And then they all leave to go to Montag's house and do the whole scene where Montag is outed as a traitor and they're going to burn all of his stuff.
Maybe it was a backup plan in case the bird, like in case the humans died and then they like released the bird. Maybe that's why they wanted it. Sorry.
No, I totally understand that. I would, we'll get to it, but the scene plays out how you expect it to. Montag burns all of his shit, but then he also kills one firefighter, but he doesn't kill Beatty in this scene. He then escapes and is running to the sanctuary when they pick up on his transponder that he's carrying or something like that. They figure out which direction he's heading. And the firefighters are then like, oh, that's cool. We know a shortcut. And so we can beat him to the dead zone that he's going to be at. But then they show up at the safe house before he makes it there by like a lot of time. They beat him by a crazy amount. And it's also wild because they show the map of what the dead zone looks like, and it's a huge area, and they somehow find the exact house that he was going to that was like a hidden safe house. It doesn't really make sense, but the firefighters do a raid. They are trying to arrest people. They light the barn on fire that the kid and the bird are in. Then Clarice and Montag show up. Montag sends Clarice to go and try and like help the other eels while he runs to the barn to try and do stuff there. When he gets in, he sees that the kid has died from smoke inhalation.
Either he died or he's like passed out and is going to
If
die.
he's passed out, Montag shows an incredible lack of care for this kid. But also, it seems like smoke inhalation isn't a thing for Montag or any of the other firefighters because they're just hanging out in this barn that is totally engulfed in flames and just totally fine. But he gets the bird out of the cage, puts the transponder on it, and this is when Beatty comes into the barn, threatens Montag, and Montag releases the bird. It flies through a hole in the roof, and then after it leaves, the like building collapses.
Well, but Beatty also like burns Montag.
For sure, Beatty burns Montag to death. Like he shoots him with a flamethrower. We don't see that happen, but Montag dies. I don't know what happens after that. I assume that Beatty might have gotten killed as well, but instead of Montag killing Beatty, in this one, Beatty kills Montag. And then the end of the movie is just stock footage of like a drone shot over rolling hills and valleys and beautiful locations with a CGI bird flying through it that's got a transponder on his leg. This was the wild parts to me because my understanding from, like you said, they did not have intentions of releasing the bird. If they had just left without the transponder, they would have made it to Canada. But because they went to get the transponder, it created the specific situation in which the transponder was completely necessary. It was so crazy.
Yeah.
But that's basically it. Did I miss anything?
No, nothing like major.
So, is this better than the book?
Yeah.
Okay, what's your argument for that?
Well, I think just purely because the characters, all of them, I mean, we are missing 2 characters, but all of the characters that are in it that were in the book have more depth and have like individual stories of growth and change and pain and like, so for Clarice it's a completely different story. Like Clarice in the movie is canonically nothing like Clarice in the book, but other than she likes books too. But she has a really, interesting plot line, and she has an interesting plot line and is doing something rebellious and is forming a connection with Montag. Montag has like this whole story. We didn't really touch on this, but like his dad was a firefighter, and his dad ended up being kind of like heretical and having books and getting died. His books got burned, but then I don't really know what happened to him, but he's no longer in Montag's life. So like he has this like kind of fraught background, and he's like in the beginning like a bro, like loves his job, loves the fame, loves fighting, and like is all about his work, and then you see him kind of progress throughout the book more so than Book Montag does. He actually like has thoughts, and Book Montag's just like, whoa, things could be different.
Yeah.
And then Beatty, I think they leaned into what you were talking about in the analysis episode, where he is intellectually like correct and like rich but morally corrupt, and Beatty has this like interesting like emotional fragility where like he knows that some things are bad, but he stands for them and does them, and so I would say just all of the characters like have more depth and more arc than in the book. So the plot is crazy, but
yeah, the plot is crazy. I think that it's interesting how they chose what of the book they were going to keep and what they weren't. And it felt at times as though they were afraid to get rid of elements from the book that I think the movie would have been better served as a result of. It felt like they were mixing their metaphors a little bit when they're trying to make a statement about, like, it felt like they really just wanted to talk about the internet.
Yeah.
And instead of just talking about the internet, they also had to talk about book bans because this is Fahrenheit 451. And they also, like, they threw in such a weird amount of 1984, where it's got, like, the surveillance state as a result of the social media. Everybody is taking these drugs that affect their memory and their mood and stuff. There's so much going on.
There's so much going on. It was very confusing. I don't know why they added this ominous plot in. Like, it was just confusing and unnecessary.
Yeah. It felt so... Because it felt like it's got so many loose ends as a result of it. Of like, well, why could you only create one of the DNA strands? Why didn't you create more than one? If you were able to inject it in animals, why did you only inject it in one and not more than one? It leaves more questions than answers, I think.
And I don't know what it's supposed to do. Are they saying that when you inject this into someone, they suddenly have the knowledge of everything that has ever existed?
It feels like they set it up as you have to extract the DNA and decode it in order to get that information, but they also are hinting that if Omnis escapes America, it's going to be replicated and proliferate like a disease, almost. I don't know.
A point that my partner made that I'm going to steal is that, like, science fiction typically, and this was really going for science fiction, typically, like, does its due diligence to explain the science, and or a good science fiction movie, book, whatever, like, will try to explain the science, or like it will be based in somewhat accurate, some kind of scientific accuracy that is then expanded upon. And this was kind of just throwing things out there. They were like, what's a science word? DNA? Yeah, let's put in some DNA.
Yeah, it's like, I've heard it compared as like, that's the main difference between science fiction and fantasy, is that fantasy doesn't feel the need to explain itself, whereas generally in a book that is, or in a movie that is this science fiction heavy as like as far as tropes go, you would expect that it would have done more explanation than it did.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't... Like I said, I like the characters, but I didn't particularly, like, enjoy watching it, per se, just because the plot was so, like, convoluted and not that interesting.
No.
Because of its chaos and confusion and...
Which, like, I think that I wonder if, broadly speaking, it's more enjoyable. Like, do you think that they made the movie for people who have or have not read the book? Because as somebody that has read the book, I watched it and was like somewhat put off and confused as to why they were making certain choices that they were. But also I feel like they were doing things that if you hadn't read the book, you wouldn't have picked up on. This is something that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could ask that question about any book that's adapted into a movie. But I don't know. I mean, I would think that maybe... I feel like because it's such like a widely known book, maybe it's with the expectation that people know it, but they might not have read it. I don't know if that makes sense. Like books like this that are just like pervasive in culture.
Yeah.
That everyone's heard of, but not everyone's read. Like, I hadn't read it, but I knew of it, obviously, until now, unfortunately, I've read it. But, like, so maybe...
I mean, it definitely, it's got, like, the cultural cachet of if you talk about Fahrenheit 451, I feel like in a room of 10 people, at least 7 to 8 of them will be able to tell you, oh, it's about burning books.
Yeah. Did you think it was better than the book?
I went back and forth. Because I agree with you. I think that all of the characters are, for the most part, better. But I feel like the plot was just as bad in a different way. Where, like, I think that my main critique for the plot of the book is nothing happens, and everything that happens has no reason for happening. In the movie, everything happens, but nothing has a reason for happening still. Like, there's just a lot more stuff is going on in the movie than happened in the book. But I still don't think that it necessarily had any kind of grounding to it. I thought the acting was good.
It's Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah. And I thought that the cinematography at times was really interesting. Like, I really liked the fisheye lens that they used a couple of times. Like, the ultra wide, almost 360 lens was really cool. But yeah, it felt like it was trying to say too much, and as a result didn't say anything. Like, it felt very similar to the book in that way of, like, it is against burning and banning and censoring books. It's also against social media and the internet, and it's against drugs altering perception, and it's against surveillance. It's against a lot of stuff
from every popular satirical novel, and let's put it all in a movie.
They truly took, like, this is the perfect distillation of the 3 books that we have read so far for the podcast. They put all of it in there, baby.
Yeah. Oh, I did just think of something I, like, particularly didn't like that we haven't mentioned. I just wanted to bring up, because we talked about Huck Finn in the last episode in talking about censorship, and Beatty's character in this movie, during the point in the plot where they're at the house of the old woman, there's a moment before they burn all the books that Beatty and Montag are alone, and Beatty's doing his kind of monologue thing that he also does in the book. And this movie's made in 2018. And so anyways, Beatty's monologuing. He's like, here's what happened. Here's what, like, exactly what he does in the book, essentially. And then he's talking once again about the point of, like, minorities not liking certain elements of books. And instead of banning them, now we just burn them. And he points to Huck Finn, the book, in the movie, in the room. He, like, actually points out that book, and he holds it up, and he's like, says, your people didn't like that this book says, and then he says the N-word. Like, he actually says it. And I, like jump scare. Like, I was like, I was like, what was the point of that? Like, this is 2018. Like, I don't understand. I can't think of a single reason that whoever the writers of this movie.
It was an interesting choice because, like I said, like when we were talking about the analysis episode, I think that you're supposed to take what Beatty is saying as the intellectual argument of why these books have been publicly banned. Like, I think you're supposed to take that as being Ray Bradbury's interpretation of the truth. Like, he's like we said, being intellectually accurate. I think him, with that specific phraseology, instantly becomes the bad guy. And it makes it impossible in the rest of the movie to want to side with him.
Guess so. I mean, I
don't even know, because it's like, it feels like the book, it feels like the movie is half-heartedly attempting to rewrite the book, where it feels like the movie is trying to point you towards, no, the people didn't create book bans, the government created book bans, and you're supposed to believe that that is true because the guy who's arguing that the people created the book bans is very clearly a bad guy. Whereas in the book, I think you're supposed to interpret that that is in fact true, that the people did create the book bans. But yeah, I just feel like it was poorly communicated, and that that scene did give me a start where I was like, holy shit, I didn't think that was gonna happen.
I mean, I guess, like, I don't know, it's not my opinion to have, but I guess, like, maybe, I mean, it was Michael B. Jordan okay with that? Like, what, like, I don't know, I just, like, I see what maybe you were just saying, like, maybe they were trying to do something. I just feel like you could have been like, oh, this book, maybe they could have still done the your people thing. Your people thought this book was racist, or your people didn't like that this book used slurs. Like, I don't know, I just didn't think they had to drop that. Like, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it felt weird coming from not a period piece.
Yes. There are period pieces where, like, it's very clear that they're doing something specific to, like...
Yeah. Like, it would be weird if in Django Unchained, the Leonardo DiCaprio as a slave owner did not use that word. Mm-hmm. But it does feel weird for, like, the intellectual of the movie to just say that word casually.
Yeah.
While we're talking about little things that jump scared us, it blew me away that this movie was set in Cleveland, Ohio. So funny to me.
That's random.
It felt like such a random place to pick, but I thought that was really funny. But before we get into our final review of this movie, I have found some other reviews from you viewers out there just like you that we're gonna read. I'm gonna send you some of them now, Sydney.
All right, let's get into it. So this is I'm actually not gonna read the name of this person. No, I'm quite. It doesn't reveal anything. This is a 5-star review from someone who watched this movie in December of 2024. They said, "The teacher in high school that I admired very much gave me a copy of this book and told me I'd really enjoy it. I never did actually read it. Watching it kind of makes me feel bad about that now, given the plot." Well, do I have some news for you?
That was so funny to me. Like, a teacher I really admired gave me, specifically me, a book that they thought I would like. I haven't gotten around to it yet, though.
I haven't gotten around to it, but if it's anything like the movie, it's not really.
All right, I've got a 5-star review from 2023. Watched alone on plane. Loved the book so much I almost finished it. I feel like there were some themes missing in the movie, but I'll have to reread the book to know for sure.
Whoa, wait. Loved the book. I almost finished it.
I loved the book so much I almost finished the book.
And then I'll have to reread. Well, you haven't read it yet. You haven't finished it. Also, you think the themes are missing. Is that because you haven't? I don't know. I'm a little confused about the disconnect between these
Me
two
too.
forms of media.
I don't get it. I don't know what's happening.
Okay, this one was in August of 2022. Making this, that's italicized emphasis, making this book of all of them a movie is the biggest fuck you to the author I can imagine, which is enough to give a movie I haven't watched 5 stars.
I agree with this. I think Ray Bradbury would hate that his book became a movie because he hated movies, and fuck Ray Bradbury. 5 stars.
5 stars. Give a movie I haven't watched 5 stars. Hilarious. Hey, to Camilo, do you want to come on the podcast?
Do you want to talk shit with us?
We've just been haters the past 4 weeks, so if you want to be a hater with us.
I respect your energy so much. All right, last but not least, 5-star review from March 16th, 2025. I don't know why this has such low ratings, but then I have yet to read the actual book. It is, of course, on my to-read list. But as far as the movie itself, it does a great job in showcasing an authoritarian society and government where free thinking, critical thinking, and censorship of everything deemed evil and immoral are outlawed and burned, where high surveillance and indoctrination reign. So, it was great to see the protagonist, who was raised on censored history and lies, finally start to wake up and question everything that he has been taught. The ending is bittersweet, but it does have a hopeful end, in that the revolution against such a society and government will succeed. Definitely a must-watch for everyone, especially in this political climate where everything and everyone is labeled evil and a pedophile.
I wish you guys could have seen the face I just made.
Guys, why is everybody calling everybody a pedophile these days? We're just throwing these words around willy-nilly.
I'm scared of this person. I don't feel safe.
My family keeps saying evil, you can't watch my kids, don't be 50 yards from a school anymore. Like, what's up with this? It's such a crazy review.
That was so... You could have dropped the last sentence.
Yeah, why did you say that?
Why would you say that? That's a weird thing to say.
Why are you self-reporting on Maine?
That's like the person you're like in a social group and someone who just like says the wrong, too personal and kind of revealing thing at the wrong... You know, like someone just says something, you're like, oh, wait, that took it a little too far. Like that's what happened.
Yeah. Exactly. But those were y'all's reviews of the movie. We can get into our review of the movie. This is like a 1.5-star movie out of 5 for me. Slightly better than the book as far as I'm concerned, but subpar as far as movies go.
I don't review. I if you listen to our first movie interlude episode, you would have heard me say that I'm a very casual movie watcher. I don't have Letterboxd.
Yeah.
Letterboxd.
Letterbox.
I don't have a movie reviewing platform that I use or anything. But this one didn't really feel like I needed to know much about movies to watch it.
Or to know how you feel about it.
So I would probably give it. I mean, I've never like rated a movie like this, but I would never watch it again or recommend to anyone. So I might just give it 1 star. Like I don't. And I do know that I rated the book higher, but like my threshold for movies is like, did I enjoy it or not?
Yeah.
And no. So, but yeah.
Well, thank y'all so much for joining us. Like I said at the top, this is our interlude episode. Next week is going to be when we start our new series. Sydney is going to be talking us through the plot of Slapstick by Kurt Vonnegut, which we are all looking forward to.
Make a slap noise. It didn't work.
But if you want to hang out with us, chat with us, talk with us, connect with us, link and build with us between now and then, Sydney, where can people find us?
You can find us on Instagram at the Satire Fire Pod, POD, or Blue Sky, TikTok, and YouTube at the Satire Fire. I think you can find Samuel on Letterboxd.
You can.
If you want to
DM us on any of those platforms, and I'll give you my
reviews. handle. And yeah, we love it when you engage with us. If you've seen this movie, let us know your thoughts. If you have thoughts about our other episodes that you may have listened to, you can let us know that too. You can suggest things that you want us to cover on the podcast. Whatever you want to do. Like, comment, subscribe to us on wherever you get your podcast. If you're listening to this right now and you haven't subscribed, I mean, you don't have to, like, no pressure, but if you want to make sure you don't miss an episode, you can do that and give us a review, rate us 5 stars if you enjoyed this, and yeah,
our intro and outro are a remix of the song 48 by Cullah. Thanks again for listening this week. We'll look forward to seeing you next week, and don't forget to support your local library. This has been the Satire Fire. I am Samuel.
I am Sydney.
And we'll see you later.
Bye.
I just about come to the end of the road. Here, I've just about lost patience with you people. You get your ass out into the mountains or someplace or hide in there and watch that damn tube. But if not, fuck it. I'm done. In fact, my sermon